27 hours from now, the first presidential debate of 2016. The candidates are prepping. The stage is set for what could be the most watched debate ever. This is Special Report. Good evening and welcome to the campus of Hofstra University on Long Island, site of the first presidential debate. I'm Bret Baier. Hofstra is about to become the only university to host a presidential debate in 3 consecutive presidential cycles. Tens of millions of people are expected to watch Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump for the first time together on that debate stage you're looking at there. Both candidates have been preparing in different ways, but both campaigns are playing the expectations game. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin is with the Clinton campaign, who held mock debate sessions well into Saturday night. But we begin with chief political correspondent Carl Cameron and the mind games played before the debate by both campaigns. Good evening, Carl.
Hi, Bret. Trump's debate prep is wrapped up for the night, but this is like a couple of prize fighters before a bout, both talking trash. It started when the Clinton campaign let it be known that Mark Cuban, the billionaire reality TV star in his own right and owner of the Dallas Mavericks, would be given a front row seat for the debate in order to get into Trump's head. Cuban actually tweeted that he would come, and Trump in return tweeted that, well, he would have none other than as his own guest, Jennifer Flowers.
Flowers revealed a sexual relationship with Bill Clinton in the 90s, which he initially denied, but later admitted under oath. Flowers claimed she'd be coming to the debate. Cuban, the NBA Mavericks owner, who's also a reality TV star in his own right, is not getting a front row seat, and Trump's bringing no surprise guests.
Jennifer Flowers will not be attending the debate tomorrow night, but Donald Trump was using the tweet yesterday really to mock an effort by Hillary Clinton and her campaign to really distract attention from where the American people are going to be focused tomorrow night.
Among likely voters, Trump trails by 2 points nationwide within the margin of error in the latest ABC News poll, whether it's against Clinton head-to-head or the Libertarian and Green Party candidates are included. The first debate is critical. Any mistake that validates what voters dislike could prove politically crippling or even lethal for either of them. The day after the Museum of African American History opened on the National Mall in Washington, Trump running mate Mike Pence urged voters to reject Clinton and the left's predisposition to blame police racism when black civilians get shot.
We need to step away from efforts by Hillary Clinton and others to paint law enforcement in this country with the broad brush of racial bias. Donald Trump and I don't believe that law enforcement in this country is a force for racism or division.
Last night in Roanoke, Virginia, Trump blamed ongoing minority hardship on Clinton.
The policies of Hillary Clinton have brought only suffering in our inner cities.
Trump interrupted debate prep to meet Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu this morning. After Netanyahu criticized Trump's proposed ban on Muslim immigrants, Trump abandoned plans to visit Israel before the election. Trump held his last big rally before the debate in conservative Roanoke, Virginia last night and sharpened his attack on Clinton over jobs.
Here in Virginia, we are going to end the war on American energy and on our miners. Hillary Clinton says she wants to put the miners out of work. Clinton and Kaine also want to shut down shale and shut down natural gas.
Both campaigns say they hope the debate will be clean and policy-oriented, and they're both prepared for a brawl. Bret.
Carl Cameron outside Trump Tower. Carl, thank you. On the other side, how much is too much debate prep? The Clinton team seems not to be worried about that question. Secretary Clinton's late-night studying sessions and prep today also did not stop her from weighing in on the developing situation in Charlotte, North Carolina. Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin has that story tonight.
After facing criticism for not releasing the tape of Charlotte police killing Keith Lamont Scott, the department released the video yesterday after the wife of Mr. Scott shared the video she shot on her telephone camera. It is difficult to conclude from either video whether or not Mr. Scott, who suffered from a traumatic brain injury, held a gun. Hillary Clinton had tweeted the Charlotte police should release the video without delay. Clinton took some time out from debate prep Sunday, like her opponent, to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Democratic candidate spent until nearly midnight Saturday in mock prep sessions. Her running mate described their expectations.
I'm hoping there isn't a different standard in the debate, John. I think there's been some worry that maybe up to now there's been different standards applied. Hillary has been very specific about policy plans. We have a book out describing them. Donald Trump less so.
Her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, had trouble again today with specific policy plans after taking heat on MSNBC recently for not answering questions about Clinton's Syria policy. Mook found himself stumped today when asked about Clinton's position on sanctuary cities.
Secretary Clinton has released a comprehensive plan for immigration reform. This is something she has pledged to do in the first 100 days. We cannot have a situation where anybody is coming to this country illegally and committing crimes.
I'm not clear, though. Does she want to end sanctuary cities or not?
Well, I think that's too narrow a view of this situation.
Meantime, the Trump campaign is trying to paint her national security advisors as being part of the status quo.
They represent so many of the failed policies and really the stupid decisions that were made that have kept us in this perpetual conflict that we are in the Middle East and places like Afghanistan.
Critics say that Clinton may be over-preparing and could lose if she comes across as too wonky. The campaign says they hope she isn't graded on a curve. Bret?
Jennifer Griffin with the Clinton campaign in Chappaqua. Jennifer, thank you. One topic at least one candidate will surely mention tomorrow night: Hillary Clinton's emails and the continuing concerns about how she and her team handled classified information. A Friday night document dump by the FBI and news of immunity deals has offered new info to be digested on the now closed investigation. Joining me from Greenville, South Carolina, is House Oversight Committee member Trey Gowdy. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
I want to get your thoughts on these developing stories, then we'll talk about the debate tomorrow night. First of all, we get this document dump on Friday night. Tons of different pieces of the different interviews the FBI conducted. One of them, Brian Pagliano. This is the IT guy who handled the server for Hillary Clinton. And he essentially says that there was some sort of cover-up. And that he mentioned this. Congressman, your reaction to all this?
Well, there was a cover-up, and the folks who aided and abetted that cover-up is the State Department. I mean, keep in mind, Bret, she had this arrangement for the entire time she was Secretary of the State. Then she kept her emails for almost 2 years, and it was only because a congressional committee would not go away that the State Department bothered to ask her to return the public record. And then that's when it gets interesting. The conversations between Cheryl Mills and Patrick Kennedy, and then Platte River, and then we send a subpoena, and Platte River destroys documents after the subpoena. The State Department, which is supposed to be apolitical, not interested in the next presidential election, has been covering for Hillary Clinton since she left office.
Well, what about the Department of Justice offering this at least partial immunity, but immunity through the FBI to 5 different people, one of them, Cheryl Mills, the former chief of staff of Hillary Clinton? For a lot of people who looked at this, they just don't get that.
Yeah, and I would be one of them who don't get it for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you think that there is evidence that is relevant to an investigation on a piece of physical property, you use a subpoena, a grand jury subpoena. You don't strike an immunity agreement with the computer. You go get the computer. Her lawyer, Beth Wilkinson, who, by the way, represents both Heather Samuelson and Cheryl Mills, she's on record as saying the Department of Justice assured me my clients did nothing wrong. Well, people who have done nothing wrong typically don't ask for immunity. So my question would be, immunity from what? What was it that you were worried about the FBI finding on those computers? And, Bret, I'll tell you what I think it is. She had classified information on those computers. So you offer immunity to Cheryl Mills, who has classified information on her computer. How can you possibly then prosecute Hillary Clinton for having classified information on her computer? You couldn't do it.
So are you saying, Congressman, that there was no intention at the beginning to prosecute Hillary Clinton, no matter what happened?
Well, I don't want to malign the FBI, but I can tell you this. I have been underwhelmed by an agency that I once had tremendous respect for, and it's the Department of Justice who gives out immunity agreements, not the FBI. The FBI doesn't immunize anyone. But the Department of Justice, the same department that is headed by someone who met on a tarmac for half an hour to discuss golf and grandkids with a potential witness, to say nothing about being the spouse of a target, a potential witness in an investigation. She recuses herself. Someone in the Department of Justice had to decide to pass out these immunity agreements. And I see the get out of jail free cards, Bret. What I don't see is the jail. Usually you strike immunity agreements to further a prosecution. There is no prosecution. It's just 5 get out of jail free cards.
All right, I want to ask you about the president, and he factors into this document dump. Here's what he said back in March 7th.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
At the same time, everybody else learned it through news reports.
Now, there's an email in this document dump that Uma Abedin notes that the president could only receive emails from approved addresses. She recounted when Clinton changed her primary email address, they had to notify the White House so Clinton's emails would not be rejected by the server. Uma Abedin, was not sure how often Clinton emailed the president. Abedin was shown an email chain dated June 28, 2012 with the subject regarding congratulations. Abedin did not recognize the name of the sender. Once informed that the sender's name is believed to be a pseudonym used by the president, Abedin exclaimed, "How is this not classified?" Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Bret, I read that a couple of weeks ago when I read the FBI's file. This is about the 4th or 5th time the president has said something, that he learned something from a media report, whether it was the IRS targeting scandal or whether it's this. He's got really poor people staffing him if he has to rely on you and others in the media to tell him that Hillary Clinton was using her own private email. He emailed with her. It wasn't just once. It was more than once. And the other defense I've heard is, well, it was the letter H. Well, that's fine, but what you didn't see is state.gov. And that's what you ought to see if you're getting an official email. The one question that's never been asked of Secretary Clinton that I would love to ask if I were in your line of work is, would you have had this arrangement had you beat President Obama? Had you won in 2008?
Yeah, that brings me to my last point. This debate tomorrow night. She likely will get asked some kind of question like this, we would think. If not, it'll be raised by Donald Trump. You've evolved on Donald Trump. You supported Marco Rubio. You said Donald Trump didn't have specifics back in February. Does he have specifics now? And what do you think about tomorrow night?
He has some specifics, but, you know, Bret, this is really not a policy presidential race. This is about the anger and frustration that my fellow Americans feel with those of us who have been in politics, and Secretary Clinton's been in it for a long time. The way I look at it, I was a Marco Rubio supporter, so I'll quote him. The choice is between someone I don't agree with on everything or someone I don't agree with on anything. And between the two, I'm going to pick the person I don't agree with on everything.
Congressman Gowdy, thanks for the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let's get some reaction and a look ahead to tomorrow night with syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer, who joins us now from Washington. Charles, your thoughts?
Well, look, I think Trey Gowdy is absolutely right. The more you look at these document dumps, the more you look at the things that were done, the granting of immunity. And as Gowdy explains, there was no need for that. All you had to do was issue a subpoena. And since it came from the Department of Justice, it seems to me very clear that the answer to your question, which Gowdy was a little bit hesitant to go into, was that, yes, it was understood from the beginning by the Department of Justice and the White House that this person was going to be the Democratic nominee, that the legacy of the president was going to hang on her winning re-election and that and that there was no way they were going to prosecute her, and whatever had to be done would be done along the way. My view is that Comey found himself in a position where he's not a stupid man. He understood that was the setting for the whole play. And his job, I think, he felt, now I'm imputing this to him, was to come out with his reputation reasonably intact by laying out the indictment while in the end not indicting. I don't know that it was a happy compromise, but that looks to me to be what actually happened.
All right, so we are 26 hours and 45 minutes away from this thing starting here at Hofstra. There's been a lot of prognostication about which Donald Trump shows up, whether Hillary Clinton tries to run circles around him in policy. What do you think heading up to this, and who's under more pressure?
Well, it seems to me the context for this debate is that we have the two most unpopular candidates in modern American history, and that the bar for each is extremely low. For her goal is to come out as reasonably likable, to quote a phrase that Barack Obama used in the 2009 election. For him, for Donald Trump, his job is to come out as reasonably unscary. Now, that's not exactly a hard task for regular folks, but that is the objective, I think, for these two candidates. For Trump, he's got the higher upside because he is trailing. It's very close, but he is trailing. He needs to get something moving here to continue the momentum he has, because if he stalls and the election's held today, he would lose. But on the other hand, since she has been running a relentlessly negative campaign from sea to shining sea, all he has to do is to show that he's not the monster he's portrayed as, and he wins. So you show up and act normal, and you win. That shouldn't be a difficult task.
Charles, as always, thank you. Well, who do you think is under more pressure in the debate tomorrow? Let me know on Twitter at Bret Baier. You can use the hashtag Special Report. Up next, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel announces a plan to try to clean up crime in the Windy City. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 23 in Tulsa, where hundreds of people packed a church for a funeral honoring Terrence Crutcher. Crutcher was shot and killed by a police officer September 16th. That officer, Betty Shelby, has been charged with first-degree manslaughter in his death. Fox 5 in Atlanta, where the city's Black Lives Matters chapter announced a boycott of major retailers in response to recent police-involved shooting deaths around the country. Organizers held a small protest outside of major shopping centers Saturday as part of that cause. And this is a live look at Miami from our affiliate WSVN down there. Cloudy Miami. The big story there tonight, a tragic one. The death of a rising star in Major League Baseball. Miami Marlins pitcher Jose Fernandez was one of 3 people killed in a boat crash early today off Miami Beach. The Marlins game today was canceled as the team mourns the death of the 24-year-old pitcher. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back to Hofstra. An emergency session of the UN Security Council on Syria has ended with no action taken. Ambassadors from the United States, Britain, and France walked out in protest when the Syrian ambassador was called to speak. All 3 Western powers blame Moscow for supporting the offensive in Aleppo by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. On British television, the UK's Foreign Secretary blamed Russia, claiming Russia should be investigated for war crimes. The claim comes following an attack on an aid convoy that killed 20. Secretary Boris Johnson said Russia is, quote, guilty of protracting this war, of making it far more hideous. Russia's foreign ministry shot back that Britain is the one guilty of war crimes in Iraq. There is some rare good news coming out of the war-torn country of Syria. The Red Cross says it has delivered food and medical supplies to towns that have been isolated for nearly 6 months. Washington police have arrested a 20-year-old suspect in Friday's mall shooting that left 5 people dead. Arkan Satin was seen by a police patrol and arrested without incident following a massive manhunt. The arresting officer said Satin was in a zombie-like state when taken into custody. He's being held without bond and faces 5 counts of first-degree murder. Police do not know, they say, his motivations at this point. They also say nothing so far has pointed to terrorism. The teen immigrated to the U.S. from Turkey and is a legal permanent resident. Violence has plagued the city of Chicago, as we know, for months. And with the soaring shooting and murder rates, the city's problems have become a national issue in this campaign. Faced with pressure to fix it, Chicago's mayor says he has a plan to curb the bloodshed. Correspondent Matt Finn reports.
Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, struggling to repair his tattered image, unveiled this week his comprehensive plan to fight the city's devastating violent crime and bloodshed.
We cannot afford to lose another generation to the gangs and the streets, and to the guns and to the violence.
The mayor, fighting back tears, cited examples of innocent Chicagoans murdered in recent weeks, including a 6-year-old girl playing on a stoop and a mother walking with her children to register for school.
And what makes it even worse is that her murder might have been prevented if the alleged perpetrators had been given the sentences they deserve for previous crimes.
The mayor's 3-part plan includes enforcement, investment, and prevention. The largest part, adding 970 new police officers to the force by 2018. Chicago's police department, which has struggled to recruit and keep up with the attrition rate, is now down several hundred officers from when Emanuel took office. The mayor admits CPD has to rebuild trust after allegations of racism and even murder. But he's pleading with Chicagoans to support officers whose morale has plummeted.
No resource will match the resource of an officer knowing that the neighborhood they work in supports their work.
Chicago's crime rate is now on pace to match figures not seen since the crack cocaine wars of the late 1980s and early 90s. More than 3,000 people have been shot this year, 545 people murdered. Emanuel underlined his support for holding gun stores accountable for selling to known criminals. And he's reinforcing his support for a state bill that would ensure repeat gun offenders get the strongest prison sentences. Critics wonder how the cash-strapped city will pay for the nearly 1,000 new positions that will cost a minimum of $133 million. The city says those officers are critical investments, and it will identify all possible savings to ensure they're in the 2017 budget. Bret?
Matt Finn in Chicago. Matt, thank you. Few issues in the national debate get voters more emotional than the subject of race. And it promises to be no different when the nominees meet here Monday for their own debate. Tonight, Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen looks at where the candidates stand on this searing issue.
Chief, don't you do it!
With shootings by police and of police, and racially charged riots roiling American cities, the already heated presidential campaign unfolds amid extraordinary volatility in race relations.
You have racial tension in our country at a height.
In unprecedented fashion, each candidate flatly accuses the other of racial prejudice.
Hillary Clinton is a bigot who sees people of color only as votes, not as human beings worthy of a better future.
His real message seems to be make America hate again.
With the African-American community, the Democratic nominee undoubtedly enjoys a longer working relationship and a level of support some polls place at 9-1. She has also released an ad using Trump's words and record against him. Elsewhere, Clinton speaks with her usual caution, lamenting systemic racism while calling for communities of color to respect police. The Republican nominee, as unconventional a candidate as Clinton is conventional, challenges black Americans to rethink their long support for Democratic candidates.
Latest Fox News poll conducted this month finds likely voters saying Hillary Clinton would do a better job of handling race relations than Donald Trump by a margin of 58 to 34%. Bret?
James, thank you. Authorities are trying to discover the types of drugs involved in overdoses that killed 7 people in the Cleveland area Saturday. The outbreak comes after more than 50 people died from heroin or fentanyl during August. The most opioid deaths in a single month in Cuyahoga County history. In southern Ohio, Cincinnati area hospitals have seen more than a dozen overdoses a day since a powerful drug used to sedate elephants was found in the local heroin supply about 2 months ago there. Well, you feel like you're paying more for gas? You're not alone. The average price of gasoline has risen 4 cents in just 2 weeks. The highest average price for regular gas in the continental U.S. is in San Francisco. The lowest is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Before the candidates take center stage tomorrow, the All-Star panel is coming up to analyze what each candidate needs to do. Keep it here from Hofstra University.
Jennifer Flowers will not be attending the debate tomorrow night, but Donald Trump was using the tweet yesterday really to mock an effort by Hillary Clinton in her campaign to really distract attention from where the American people are going to be focused tomorrow night.
Is your goal of this debate is to get under his skin? Is that why you gave Mark Cuban a ticket right in the front row?
No, I think Mark Cuban is one of the business leaders who was never involved in partisan politics, who's endorsed Hillary.
Well, he's also one of the loudest Trump critics. Mark Cuban, it appears, is going to be at the debate, perhaps in the front row, and likely to try to get under Donald Trump's skin. However, Jennifer Flowers of infamous 1992 presidential campaign history is not going to be here, according to the campaign. We'll start there. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. David Cantonese, senior politics writer for U.S. News and World Report. And Mercedes Schlapp, columnist for the Washington Times. All right, Steve, the back and forth, the mind games, it's all kind of setting up for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the pre-debate fight rituals that you see before a big boxing match or MMA fight. Look, I mean, John Podesta's claim is ridiculous. Of course that's why Mark Cuban is here.
Just because he's a businessman?
He's been loud, he's been tweeting at him, he's been making fun of Trump, he's been going after him. Of course that's why he's coming. And it's a bit rich, frankly, for the Clinton team to show so much concern and frustration that Trump invited Jennifer Flowers when they invited Mark Cuban first. And you hate to get into the he started it, she started it, because it feels more like, you know, a childhood fight than it does a presidential campaign. But they don't really have much grounds to complain here.
I saw that debate in high school, I think, where they sent somebody in there.
You said the ex-girlfriend.
Look, the Clinton campaign's showing their cards. They're trying to lay the bait for Trump, and he responded already via Twitter. I think tomorrow it will be about, can both of them avoid their stereotype, right? And for Trump, that means not saying something crazy or stupid for 90 minutes. For Hillary, she can't tell a lie. That would be pretty provable. So I think they both
can't cough.
Well, right.
I mean, isn't it like the pressure is on this 90 minutes of...
I think so, and look, that's going to show some stamina from both of them from an intellectual and a physical standpoint. And, you know, I think, we were talking about this before we came on here, but I think they are going to do everything to try to restrain Trump. I think Kellyanne Conway is probably in a room with him tonight saying, don't take that bait. Bite your tongue and stay on the message we prepared.
All right, a couple of polls here. How important are the presidential debates to your decision? Extremely or quite important, 34%. Somewhat or not important, 65%. And a tracking poll. How likely is it that you will watch the first presidential debate? You have very likely, somewhat likely, not too likely, and not at all, but it adds up to a significant portion of this poll, and that tracks with other polls as well. And then take a look at our special report average of recent polls. It's about 5 of the most recent national polls, and it has Clinton up about 3.6 nationally, but obviously, Mercedes, it depends on the poll. This is an average of recent polls.
Sure, this is the Super Bowl of debates, and I think for the most part, when you look back, debates might not have been the game changers, but I think in this particular case, the undecided voters, the Gary Johnson voters, they're going to be looking at this debate tomorrow night because they need to be convinced, can I vote for either one of these two candidates? And so I think that's where the focus is going to be. And another poll had said that 1/3 of these voters believe that these presidential debates could and will change their minds. So when you have such a tight margin in these polls, every single vote matters. And I think it's going to matter in this case.
Is the over-under 100 million, do you think?
I mean, that would be incredible. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, we saw significant interest from voters, Republicans and non-Republicans, in the primary debates, particularly on the Republican side, because of the participation of Donald Trump. Whatever you think about him, whatever you think about his policies or lack of policies, people want to see what's going on. People believe that Donald Trump makes things interesting. It's why he had ratings for The Apprentice. It's why I think he helped bring in ratings for the Republican debate.
The previous record, Dave, was 1980, and that was roughly about 80 million. But remember, there was only one debate that cycle, and it was really kind of close to the election. Ronald Reagan there and Jimmy Carter. I think you're looking at a situation where you could see much more than that.
Absolutely, and I think the first 30 minutes are going to be so key. I mean, I was looking at the ratings. People fall off and that second half of the debate. They start to click around their TV. So I think our impressions, the media impressions, and the voters' impressions will be made on that first 30 minutes and what kind of temperament both candidates show on that stage.
And whether the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints fans stick around for the whole debate.
So true.
That game is opposite that. Final thing here, the backdrop of what these questions could be. You know, obviously Charlotte, the release of this police video today, both campaigns weighed in on that. We're asked about it today. Take a listen to Mike Pence and Joel Pence.
We need to step away from efforts by Hillary Clinton and others to paint law enforcement in this country with the broad brush of racial bias. Donald Trump and I don't believe that law enforcement in this country is a force for racism or division.
The police say that Keith Scott was armed.
Well, right now they say that. Have they said their video shows that clearly? I think we ought to wait for the end of the full investigation.
So, you know, it's dealing with this explosive situation, how both candidates are handling.
Right, and it's very difficult to give a simple solution to a very complicated problem. And you do see that in this political environment, they're taking sides to a certain extent. You see the Trump campaign looking more at being very supportive of law enforcement. You see Hillary Clinton really saying we've added 2 more names to black men who have been killed by police officers. So these political solutions, I think, are dangerous because of the mere fact that race relations in this country are deteriorating right now, and I think it's very impactful.
And politically, Dave, I mean,
I think it will be a top topic for both these candidates to address, and I think there'll be a stark divide. I think for Trump, it'll be interesting if he doubles down on the stop and frisk proposal that he said that should be implemented in Chicago, and also screening. That's, you know, he said that needs to be done. Profiling. That's the policy he wants to implement. He hasn't detailed exactly how he would do that or what standard he would use, but I think that will be drilled upon tomorrow night.
But that law and order pitch, does it play certain states? Does this issue divide perhaps other states that perhaps wouldn't have been involved had it not been for this evolution of these incidents?
Yeah, I think it does. I think if he sticks to a general law and order pitch and says we've got to show greater respect for law enforcement, it's not the case that that there's this rash of law enforcement running around looking to shoot African Americans, as you might conclude if you were just listening to Black Lives Matter. But at the same time, if he goes too far in the details, talking about some of the policies that Dave mentioned that Trump has proposed or advocated in the past, I think he risks alienating those same suburban women voters that he so desperately needs.
90 minutes, it's tough not to get into detail.
Especially when it's just one-on-one. I mean, one of the things that I think Trump was able to do in the primary debates, because there were so many people up on stage, is avoid getting into details. So you ask him about anything, and he would say, well, I'm going to make great deals, and our politicians are stupid, and that's his answer. You can't get away with that for 90 minutes.
Oh, I agree. I think it's going to be the unpredictability factor. That is why I think we're going to see so many people watch the debate, because for Donald Trump, he's going to need to explain not only the overall vision, but there will be a need to go into a bit of detail without getting lost in the weeds. This is where Hillary Clinton gets into trouble. She gets too much in the weeds, and then she appears too wonky. So it will be, but I think what people are going to be looking at is subjective, body language, demeanor, temperament. They want to see if these 2 individuals can be presidential, and that's going to be the key.
We will take a look at the moderator, what role that moderator should play, how the campaigns are weighing in. We're live from Hofstra University's site of the first presidential debate. We'll be right back.
So I think the debate issue, we obviously let it be an even standard for both, but that issue about specifics, answering those unanswered questions, and checking people on truthfulness, that's going to be very important.
In our history, the moderators have found it appropriate to let the candidates be the one that talk about the accuracy, the fairness of what the other candidate or candidates might have said. I don't think it's a good idea to get the moderator into essentially serving as the Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's Janet Brown with the Debate Commission talking about the role of the moderator. Lester Holt, of course, from NBC, is the moderator. He put out three general topics, and they are America's direction, achieving prosperity, and securing America. Basically, every question in the world could fit into one of these buckets. We're back with the panel. Mercedes, what about this whole thing about the fact-checking and moderators and what role they should play?
Well, Bret, I think I should ask you the question, as you were once a moderator. I think it's incredibly challenging job for what the moderators have to do. But look, I don't think it's a moderator's job to fact-check. You crossed that fine line. We saw that in 2012 with Candy Crowley and that whole incident with Romney. It really changed even the feel of that debate. And so I do think that there's going to be plenty of fact-checking after the debate, and that's what candidates are going to be, what we're all going to be looking for.
And there you see the debate stage. We should point out that Clinton will be on the right side of the screen if you're looking at that, the podium on the right. And Donald Trump will be on the left. This is the debate center. Dave, what about, why there's such a call by the Clinton campaign for moderators to do this fact check real time? They feel like Trump is on a bar curve.
My prediction is Lester Holt is going to be tough and is going to intervene.
Because of the Matt Lauer?
Because the Matt Lauer thing. I think the Clinton campaign has been effective at working all of us over the last 3 weeks since the Commander-in-Chief Forum, when they felt that Matt Lauer was very tough on her for 30 minutes and then let him go. And now I think Lester Holt works for the same network as Matt Lauer. And I think this is in Lester Holt's head to intervene, not all the time, but if Trump says, I was never for the war in Iraq, I think you will see the moderator say, well, no, Mr. Trump, didn't you actually say this, and present it? And I think that is a fair thing for him to do.
Well, I will say this, that being in a town hall situation and you are with the candidate, or a primary debate for that matter, and these general election debates are really two different things, because Jim Lehrer used to say when something needed to be checked, he would turn to the other candidate and say, well, what about that? And it's that candidate's job to fact-check the other candidate.
Yeah, see, I think it is part of the moderator's job to fact-check candidates, particularly on something egregious. I mean, we know that Donald Trump did not, in fact, oppose the Iraq war in advance. If Hillary Clinton were to say, I turned over all my work-related emails, or I did what I did out of convenience, I think it would be...
But if the moderator fact-checks on both sides, then that's fine.
Well, you have to... Yeah, well,
Yeah.
of course.
And
Of course the moderator has to fact-check on both sides. And it's not practical for the moderator to fact-check everything. After all, this is a debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Nobody would ever get a sentence out. These two candidates are known for not telling the truth. So you can't have the fact-checker check everything. And I think the point about Candy Crowley is the right point, but I would come to a little bit different conclusion. It's not that a moderator should never fact-check. It's that if you do fact-check, you have to know your facts. You have to get it right. And that was her problem in that instance.
Because President Obama, we went over this many times, but did an interview with 60 Minutes that really never hit the air until a few days before the election. It actually was online, in which he really did question whether it was a terror act or not, to Steve Croft's pressing, just to give you context on that Candy Crowley moment. So the candidates, I mean, they will obviously be going back and forth, but will there be a time issue with kind of owning the space? Or do you think Donald Trump is going to have short answers and kind of bob and weave? Where do you think the style will go?
That's a million-dollar question, Bret. I think you're going to see the calm Trump. I think you're going to see the Trump that's going to present an overall vision of how he wants to build the economy, how he's going to keep communities safe. I think you'll see him stick to his own version of a script. And I think that is where you're not going to see too much of... He will hopefully not take the bait from Hillary Clinton if she starts going after him. The question will be, can he be effective in going after a record? I think that's another area that he's going to definitely go into.
You know, the campaign says that one of the reasons that they gave him these speeches, these prepared teleprompter speeches on a host of policy issues over the last few weeks, was to, by osmosis, get some of these facts and figures into his head to be able to ready to deploy in this debate.
to get it embedded in his mind so he can go out and say, look, I think there is a question of whether he can fill 90 seconds on policy and not repeat himself over and over and over. He's got some, he was a one-hit wonder in the primaries, like the rock band that has one great song. Now we're going to see if he has a whole album. Can he have a whole album where he talks about healthcare, Iraq policy, and creating jobs? Does he have the breadth and substance to do it without repeating himself?
45-minute to an hour campaign events where he gets, this is the non-teleprompter stuff. Let's go back to the non-teleprompter days. He kind of covered the water.
But even then, he didn't really get much into policy weeds or into great detail. I mean, I don't know whether he needs to be something beyond the Billy Squier of presidential debates, the one-hit wonder. But I think he needs to do something to show that, to make people comfortable with him as a president.
Her challenge quickly is somehow to convince people she's honest and trustworthy.
That's right, and it's going to be all about the memorable lines. We're not going to worry about the 90 seconds. We're going to worry about those 5 seconds. And Hillary Clinton might have to try to see how she's going to make a case for that, but it's going to be very difficult for her.
We ran out of seconds. Panel, thank you very much. Next up, some final thoughts. Normally at this time, the kicker, I'd say, finally tonight, but this isn't a normal Sunday. This is Debate Day Eve. So in just 1 hour, I'll be right back in this chair. A whole new hour of special report. We will get the latest from Campaign Carl and Jennifer Griffin. We'll talk to representatives of both the Trump and Clinton campaigns about the preps, plus cover the possible override vote of the president's veto of the 9/11 bill, an override that has never happened during this administration. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight. That's it for this hour of Special Report. Back right here at 8 p.m. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. Hofstra University is hopping tonight, site of the first presidential debate. People are excited. Students are out. We're getting ready. Fox Report starts right now.